sacrifices of the living until I realized how they lost people. And so I would like to honor some of the dead. For my unit, we lost Sergeant David Stotts, Corporal Louis Ayala, Staff Sergeant Brian Misloff. I came after those three. There was one day I was coming back to my my room. We had these trailers; they're all on a grid. And after the day was over, I saw Corporal Caldwell come through, and I was like, "How are you doing?" He said, "Well, I wrote a letter and I want to send it back home, and I don't know where the mailbox is." I was like, "You're in luck. I've been writing letters to my fiancée for a long time, so I know exactly where it is." So I was like, "Come on." We went to the mailbox and showed him where it was. He put his mail away. We talked for a while, said our good nights, went home. The next day he was dead. And then another time we were going out to some patrol bases, and I was sitting there with the chaplain in the back seat, and I were in the back, and then we had Corporal Swanson was driving, and Special St. John was up in the turret, the gun turret, and Swanson was like, "Hey chaplain, have you heard St. John sing his Christmas song? It's getting close to Christmas." And I was like, "No, I'd like to hear it." And he went and sang the whole 12 days of Christmas, only he changed it to like, "On the first day of Christmas, how'd you get to me?" And then he's like, it goes from grenades to suicide vests, man dresses, cold meals, all these things. I thought it was hilarious. He made it just past Christmas, and then they got hit with an IED and killed both St. John and Swanson. PFC David Tamaltai, he was in my platoon. He died. And then there was a town. We had two towns that we had a patrol base. One of them was called Mishata, and the people there, when you go through Mishata, they all smile and wave at you and everything. And there's another town called Tarmia. And Tarmia was just north of Taji. Taji was a former Air Force base for Saddam. And a lot of the Ba'athist Party elites went to retire up in Tarmia. It was a retirement community for people who were very close to Saddam and loyal to him. And those people gave us a stink eye when we drove through town. And so we had a lot more problems with Tarmia. And someone had taken a car and taken the back tail light out of it and used that where they could climb into the trunk and shoot out a tail light. And they took it up to close to the patrol base, and my friend Justin Payton was up on top of the roof, full security, and they shot him right in the neck, and it scooped out the front of his neck. And the guys on either side saw him. They grabbed him and lowered him to the ground, and they were saying, "Don't die on me." And they took the medic was looking for a spot to put in a little tube. They couldn't find it, and he was telling them not to die on him. And they said, he's like, "Chaplain," he looked at me in the face and smiled with a "it's going to be okay" smile. And then he looked up past me at the sky and looked like, he's like, "Chaplain, I could swear he looked and saw Jesus." And then he died. And Justin had a testimony all the way to the day of his death, to the moment of his death, and that the medics and those around who all knew. I think that's very telling of the way he lived his life. Anyway, so after that, they got some intel on who the sniper was, and were able to get him the very next day, which, or it might have been that night, which the terrorists didn't like that, so they started an attack, a very organized attack 2 days later on the patrol base in Tarmia. And that morning, Sergeant Woodward knocks on the door, and he's like, "Chaplain, you got to get to the talk right now. There's been an attack on Tarmia. We have 17 casualties, and we don't know those who are dead or who are alive." And so I went and woke up the chaplain. We raced up there. He went up to the Tactical Operations Center, and he was up there, and I went to the aid station, waiting for the injured to come back. And by then they had gotten a radio communication going, and I was listening in on the radio in the aid station the whole time. And the executive officer of that company wrote about that attack, and I think it'd be better if I just read what he said happened instead of relay what I heard and talked to people. He says, "What I didn't know at the time was that a bomb truck packed full of military-grade explosives crashed through both of our gates and sped towards the barracks front door. Hearing the sentry's alert as the vehicle approached, First Lieutenant Jokinen engaged the truck with his M4 and shot the VBIT driver. This caused the driver to stray from his target, the barracks, and steer into our fuel pod and detonate his payload. The explosion sprayed 500 gallons of burning diesel fuel all over the patrol base's perimeter, destroyed the front facade of our barracks, crippled all of our vehicles, and devastated the power sources, thus rendering us without any communications beside our handheld ICOM radios. To make matters worse, the blast killed Staff Sergeant Cologne instantly and wounded everyone except for me and Sergeant First Class Housing. While some of the wounded were lucky and suffered mere scratches, others were fighting for the next breath. Sergeant First Class Housing and I ran outside the command post and beheld an unbridled sense of scene of destruction. Silhouetted against the burning fuel pod, a dazed mass of American soldiers wearing nothing but their brown t-shirt and underwear and body armor stumbled and covered in dust, bleeding from their ears and perforated with giant chunks of glass and concrete. We assisted the soldiers still healthy enough to walk to carry those who were unable to do so back to the CP, while the little kids tossed grenades over patrol base wall. So they were able to scrounge and find some batteries to fix it, get the radio working again. They called in some nearby Apache helicopters, two of them. They came in and were doing their thing, and they called the neighboring patrol base that we had in Wishada and asked for some help to secure a landing site for a medevac dust-off helicopter. They did, and they got the wounded out of there. And of all that was going on, we only lost two: Corporal McCarn and Staff Sergeant Cologne, and everyone else had injuries that they were able to recover from. So it was quite a day. Then we lost Staff Sergeant Jerry Burge. Another night, I went to see one of the guys from my platoon, Specialist Cantrell, and he knew that I was going to go propose to Kim on my mid-tour leave. Chaplain, I broke up with my fiancée, and I've got a ring. Would you like to buy it? I'll sell it to you for a little cheap. I said, well, I would, but I already ordered one, so I don't need it. He's like, well, I'll find someone else. And he went out that night, and he got hit with the IED and died the next day. Sergeant Joel House, Sergeant Jimmy Malone, First Lieutenant Daniel Riordan, Sergeant Roberto Silveris, and Private Justin Sanders. Those were all the ones from my unit that died. And as a chaplain assistant, I conducted memorials for each one of them, and we had taps played for all of those. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price on its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated.